I'm really looking forward to the conversation today, especially since we both write in commonality in both
Hmm.
the thriller genre and especially historical fiction. So that'd be a good place for us to start.
Sure.
Tell me, uh, when when you began writing thrillers and mystery type stories, I understand you had a conversation with another author that led you into historical fiction. Can you tell me a little bit
Hmm.
about that and how you decided to make historical fiction an important part of what you write?
Yeah, I've always been interested in history. My dad was a big World War II buff. I think he read every book known to man on World War II. And then I was talking to Terrence, and he wrote a book uh, about World War One, and so I said, "Well, that'd be interesting." So I love World War One. I think it's a very interesting period of our time, and so I thought I'm going to write one, and I want to write it from the perspective of the soldier. Most when I write historical fiction, I write it from that person who's doing it or did it. And my first one, one of four, I've always been very intrigued with the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. I was in the army, and it's really very uh, symbolic place, very important place, I think, in American history. So I decided to write his story that's never been told because nobody knows who he is. And I know that a I love this book, and I love how you intertwine, the Mexican Revolution basically and uh, Abraham Lincoln. How did you was that always the plan for this book? Or how'd that come about?
The, I've mentioned this before in podcasts, but I like to find snippets in history that just don't make sense and
Yes.
then try to write a story that might make more sense and that might be more accurate. And that book
Mhm.
actually began rummaging around in the Mexican archives on a business trip, trying desperately to stay out of the bars with my Mexican partners.
Mhm.
So I hired an interpreter and spent a bunch of time roaming around at the National Museum and National Archives in Mexico City. And I actually found correspondence back and forth between both parties in the Mexican Revolution and Abraham Lincoln. And that's what led to the beginning of that book.
That it's just so interesting. I'm just like you. What I'll do is I'll find a period that I'm writing about, a month or a year or whatever,
Mhm.
and I'll find out historically significant events about those. For example, in one of four, Harry Truman was an artillery officer in World War One. So I put him in the book because that was around that same time period. In the new book, War on the Porch, I put Theodore Roosevelt's son died in a plane crash in July 1918. I added that to this book because I wanted some significant historical facts in there to help with the story to make it that much more, believable.
Agree with that. And uh, in the book that you just showed, that one of the things that was really critical to me is I actually saw a note that was written from Emperor Maximilian.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was written by his chief of staff to the Lincoln administration, basically asking him to be more balanced in their approach to Mexico. And there was a line in there that stuck in my head for 25 years, which is what led to this book. And it was
Mm-hmm.
simply, if you don't show an even hand now so that we resolve our problems, you are going to have trouble on your southern border for the next 2 centuries. And that line stuck in my
Wow.
head. And the fact is, Lincoln completely ignored it.
Yeah.
He ignored it. And
Yeah.
I think that the fact is we've had trouble at our southern border for the next 2 centuries.
Yeah.
But
Even go ahead.
go ahead.
It's interesting. No, it's in World War One. Germany offered Mexico if they would attack the southern flank of the United
Yeah.
States, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona back. And Mexico basically said, "Nah, I'm good. I've already had Pershing. I've already had Pershing one time. I don't need them again." So again, that's significant. But you're right. 2 centuries we've had that southern border has been coarse, right? It's been
It,
porous and coarse and everything.
it has been. And, similarly, in your two books now about World War One,
Mm.
um, you know, the war to end all wars only guaranteed another war. And
Yes.
that's, I think that's something that a lot of people struggle to understand. In fact, most
Mm.
people don't have any grasp of what happened in World War One and how that led to World War Two. So I'm glad you're writing that.
Yeah. I mean, it led to a lot of the countries now where there's conflict because they were made countries when they were never countries, they were tribalism.
That's right.
And once the central powerful government leaves, that's when the chaos starts. Well, we're reliving the effects of World War One today,
We are.
after 100 and some years. It's such an
So
interesting period.
when you take on a story, tell
Mhm.
me about, you know, how do you choose a specific key character or couple of characters that make it work? Um, you know, one of the most moving moments of my life are the two or three times I've been to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Mhm.
Um, how the hell did you figure out who that should be?
Well, I haven't. So what's unique about the book is that main character had no attributes. So nobody knows who. I don't even know who he is. You said Travis. What does he look like? I don't know.
Yeah.
And the unique part of that book is I was just going to write, a diary found in a chest in an old house, and then I talked to my son. He goes, Dad, he goes, put a father-son dynamic in there where when they find the Bible, or when they find the Bible and then in turn the diary, that it brings them back as a father and son because now they're living. It's the same mission, and the son can see what war did to his father because he had some issues himself. So I try to look for a character that is dynamic, can tell a good story, and really connects with the reader. And I wanted the reader to come away with one of four is they this is the soldier or the American or the person that I would think is in the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Brave,
Uh,
very
okay.
spiritual, um, very nice individual, but and a good soldier. And then in War on the Porch, I wanted to put it back to a time period of the 50th anniversary of the war, where and it's based on a true individual that went blind in an artillery attack, and he became a prodigy on the piano.
Mhm.
Never played the piano before he was blind. So I wanted to write that, but I wanted to write that on my grandparents' porch. So the cover of the book is my grandparents' porch in Ball Knob, Arkansas. And as a matter of fact, tomorrow we moved close to there. I'm going up to the city council meeting. I'm going to give them a book. And then I'm going to try to go down to the people that bought that house and talk to them and do maybe something on that porch that is significant, kind of bring it back full circle.
What a great idea. Um, and by the way, congratulations on getting back to Arkansas.
Thank you. I never thought I would.
Look,
So when,
from the time I
yeah,
met you, I knew you really weren't a Texan.
lived there 35 years, decided to move
Yeah.
back to Arkansas. So what your character is very profound. Do you pick a main character and then all the characters are come off that main, or do you have a couple that okay, this is what I want to concentrate on and I'll split them out?
Well, in my historical fiction, the series of six books, and it begins in 1820 and continues to really the Cold War, and it follows one family from generation to generation. So I have each book includes at least one or two members of that family, and they
Yeah,
become principal parts of it, but not necessarily the people who solve the problem or are the heroes. They just carried it through, and it gives me an opportunity to write a good love story because without a love story, you don't have a next generation.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
and and personally, my personal experience is in times of severe conflict in my own. Um, Passion is deeper. It's more profound, and I like to write about that. Um,
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I try to put a little bit of dynamics in
mhm.
there of either a relationship or love. And my series, 20th Century War Stories, if you read one of four, then you read War on the Porch, I'm connecting all the books
Yes.
together up and through, the Gulf War, probably be the last one I do in that because the year. But I want to be able to do that. And this one War on the Porch, it's almost like a love story because it's this Pauline had been with uh, Patrick for 50 some years. Even through all of this, she never stopped loving him, but she never knew how it happened or really what happened because he didn't want to tell her. And then he decides to tell Gordon, P-38 pilot in World War II. They're veterans. Gordon's father died in World War I and was never recovered. And they build a bond, and he lets it go. But Gordon, at the same time, tells his what
Story.
he's feeling guilty about, and they build a very lasting relationship.
I don't know that, we both have a lot of relationship with vets.
Yeah.
My primary connection is the Vietnam era vets,
Mm-hmm.
and every one of us, has something we regret. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Mine was very simply I got knocked out of the Navy on a medical while other guys were still getting killed, and
Mm-hmm.
I have thought that as of a betrayal to all of my training and all of those guys since that happened. There was nothing I could do about it, but that doesn't
Of
mean I don't
course.
regret it. So,
Right. Right.
yeah,
Yeah, but you've turned that into be able to write stories that people love.
yes,
So everybody can turn. I think everybody has a story in them. It's just getting that story out. You've been able to build, and not only the thrillers but the historical fiction that
yeah.
people love and bond with. So I think that's great for everybody.